The builder has a responsibility to provide accurate information to the trade base in order for them to perform. Get your plans right. Get your purchase orders right. Get your schedule correct. Have your guys run a good neighborhood, and trust me, your trade base will follow you no matter where you go. If you do that and you pay them on time and pay them right, all that kind of stuff, the relationship can be good.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales.
Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartman. I'm excited to bring to you today my conversation with Mr. Farrell Middleton. He came highly recommended from a friend of mine and absolutely delivered from the initial phone call where I got to know him a little bit, his background, and the business he's running now that we're going to go into quite a bit of detail on. And then obviously this recording, you're going to get a lot from this. We cover a lot of territory, but let's give you a little bit of background on Farrell Middleton. He describes himself as a Georgia boy. People from Georgia, I think they know exactly what that means. Went to Georgia Institute of Technology, majored in building, construction, management. His grandfather was in the business. His uncle was in the business. His mother was in real estate. So he was one of these folks who was born to be in the business. He worked for Sharp Residential Venture Homes. He worked for Beazer Homes. All of his activity has been in the medium to high volume production home building. So we kind of reminisce on some of that. He also worked for Knight Homes and finished his career in production home building with DRB Atlanta. And that leads us to what we're talking about here today, a program, a series of principles that fall under the category and the title of the bell curve of life. So we talked about how we developed this program, some of the fundamentals, and how when it comes to relationships and leadership and management and training young talent and helping executive leaders continue to adapt in their career, we cover all of these aspects. And Farrell has a lot of experience with all of it. And not only from the building side, but also the trades and the suppliers. So this was a lot of fun. You, my friend, you are in for a treat. Please enjoy my conversation with Mr. Farrell Middleton. As always, thank you for listening. Mr. Farrell Middleton, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Bradley. I'm so glad to be here with you today.
When someone like Keegan O'Reilly, who's a friend of both of ours, calls me and says, there's this guy, his name's Farrell, you got to talk to him. I put it near the top of my list and we ended up talking and I was just fascinated about your experience, what you've been doing now. So let's dive in here. Give me a little bit of background about you. Take me back in the Wayback Machine, 12 years old, maybe geographically, okay. Farrell, tell me where you are in the country. Maybe tell me a little bit about your family and like, what were you passionate about then?
Okay, sure. No, glad to do it. And yeah, Keegan's a great guy. So anyway, but no, I'm a Georgia boy. Okay. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, and I was an athlete growing up. I met my wife in high school. We're high school sweethearts. There are a few of us that can say that. And basically we had a great time growing up in Savannah, Georgia, like I said, and I went to Georgia Tech. Got a degree in building construction. I was fortunate to graduate with honors, actually at the age of 21, only because I've got a birthday in early July. So the calendar was my friend there. But basically, I got into the home building business in Atlanta, Georgia in 1986. And based on the overall market on the planet, that was about the best place to be. As most people that are familiar with this podcast, your material know, Atlanta has been a leading housing market for decades now. And so I live in Atlanta, been here for 40 years, went to college in 1982 at Tech. We stayed here and my family's here. I've got a sister's here. My mom lives here. My two daughters still live here. I'm going to be a grandfather in a few months. I'm very excited about that. And life is very good. I had a fantastic 36-year career in production home building here in Atlanta. Dabbled outside the Atlanta area a little bit, some Alabama stuff a few years ago, that kind of thing. But basically, I was a lifelong home builder, and I gave it a really good 36 years of my life. But I just decided I want to spend my time differently, and so I've moved into a different direction now.
Yeah. So take me back a little bit. When did you know that like you wanted to be part of the building community? You wanted to create things. Was this kind of once you were at Georgia Tech, or was there something earlier in your career that said, okay, I see the path? And by the way, Georgia Tech is one of the outstanding construction management programs in the country. So just curious, when did you feel this pull to get into home building?
I tell you what, it started at a very early age. My grandfather was a builder. My uncle was a builder. My mom sold real estate. I started working on my first framing crew the summer I turned 16 back in 1980. And I worked on framing crews during the summertime, during high school and college. And basically, Bradley, and I say this in a very good way, I never gave myself a chance to do anything else. I wanted to be a builder. I became a builder. And over the years, I've been a high volume guy as well for the most part. And I have probably been involved in some form of fashion in building around 10,000 houses, hundreds of units a year over 36 years. The last division I worked with here in Atlanta, a couple of years ago, they closed 850 units out of the Atlanta office, that kind of thing. So big numbers, lots of communities, lots of different product, lots of customers, lots of trade relations, the whole thing. So I've kind of run the gamut of the entire thing, including development as well, not just home building. But anyway, I had it in my blood from a very early age.
Yes, understanding mom's in real estate, grandfather, uncle. I'm not sure you had any choice, but often to see them passionate about them. And what I found early on, my father was in the lumber building material side, which I'll ask about later, how suppliers can really deliver more value. But what I immediately was drawn to is that we could go into these communities and people could say, I was a small part of that, or this entire street. And it goes on as far as the eye can see. I was really part of that. So I certainly can understand kind of your passion for it. Maybe tell us a little bit in your leadership journey. Were there any mentors along the way that shared advice with you, or maybe course corrected some things that they saw, maybe some coaching? What did you find early on that allowed you to, and if you look at your kind of career progression, at least on paper, it looks like you got some great coaching and it was just straight north, hockey stick growth into kind of executive leadership. What sort of lessons stand out as you think about the mentors that guided you along the way?
Okay, sure. So that's a great question. First thing, not to get too dramatic, my father was not a part of my life as an adult, and so I didn't have that relationship. But again, when I did graduate from college at an early age, basically I went to work for a company called Colony Homes here in Atlanta. And the first one that I would give credit to is a man named Barry Giesling, who unfortunately has passed away now. But he hired me out of college. I was still in college when I interviewed with him. This was in the spring of 1986. And Barry hired me, and he was just a really fine person to work for. He was very patient. He knew that I had a lot to learn. I didn't think I had as much to learn as he knew that I had to learn. I hope I said that the right way. But he was patient. And one of the things that he provided me with is I was a manager of other people at the age of 22. I was there for about 6 months, and they put me in charge of the purchasing department. And just the circumstances of the company at that point in time just kind of worked out. So I was a manager at the age of 22, and I've never looked back. I managed people for 36 years. And so Barry was very good with my growth. He let me learn some things the hard way, and he let me know they were the hard way. But he was also very good at letting me know. He said, hey, you're young, make mistakes and learn when someone else has the financial responsibility. And that was a huge, huge lesson for me. So he was number one. And then very close to second is Tom Bradbury, who was the owner of Colony Homes at the time. And Tom is still active in the business. Tom's probably about 80-ish by now, I suppose, still active in building. And he, again, is the owner of the company. Barry was the president, and Tom was one of the owners. And Tom was extremely good to me as well. I would say that my discipline and drive to be a good production home builder probably came from Tom. He was outstanding, big process guy, computer applications, big on teamwork, that kind of thing. And he was a huge part of me maturing quickly into my career. And finally, a third one, this might sound kind of odd, but a guy named Ron Pfeiffer. He was an assistant builder when I met him in June of 1986, but he is probably one of the smartest and most under control people that I have ever known. And I actually hired him years ago at a different company when I was in a higher level position. I hired him to come on as one of my high level field managers, and he and I go back a long way, but he doesn't realize it. But my goodness, I learned a lot from him because he was just so under control all the time. It was great.
Yeah, I forget who says it, but Abe Lincoln, Roosevelt, who knows? On the internet, they both probably said it, but something along the lines of when all the world is like losing their mind, if you can have the capability of just having some poise and just being calm when everything else is going crazy, that's a really important skill to have. It sounds like Ron had that and you saw that in person.
Oh, absolutely. I sure did. Yeah. And it's funny, you say that. One of the statements I've heard long ago was anyone can hold the helm when the sea is calm. It's one of those things. And he was that way. And I feel like I've tried to be that way as well. So again, he was an assistant builder at the time, a few years older than I am, but he was just one of those guys that just connected in my life. Man, I want to be like that guy.
That's so important. You kind of talked about Barry kind of intentionally giving you room to fail on your own. I know I was given that gift as well. And yet in my role now, running our business, I often struggle with that. And I think a lot of people do. What advice might you have for people that they might be hanging on to it too closely and not giving people enough rope to fail so they can learn? And obviously small, not catastrophic ways. How might you coach me or anyone else listening who might struggle with that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer to that is you have to let people grow. And if you're in a management role over someone or a supervisory role, whatever way you want to phrase it, delegation is not a bad thing. And one of the things I've come to learn, and I was one of those guys, I was really book smart. I graduated with honors from tech, that kind of thing. I feel really good about that. But the practical side of things, I had a lot to learn. And what I felt was that it took me a long time to learn. I didn't know everything. I wanted to think I knew everything, but I didn't. It took me a while to figure that out. And he was very helpful with that. But with regard to advising other people on that, from a management standpoint, you'd be surprised at how smart other people might be. Give them a chance. They just might do some stuff better than you do it. And I've learned that. People have to grow by, number one, making good decisions. And also, number two, by making some decisions that don't work out that well and making some mistakes and, paying the price and that kind of thing. But basically, if you think you can do everything well yourself, that's great. But give somebody else a chance. You'll be surprised. And if you can do that, they will make your life a whole lot easier. And one of the other things I say as well to the people I have the opportunity to get in front of is don't be scared of smart people or people you think are smarter than you. Okay. They can make your life really, really good. So hang out with smart people. And somebody told me recently, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room.
Yes.
So anyway, just great stuff. So give people a chance. You just give them a chance and see what they can do for you.
Yeah. Let people surprise you.
That's right.
I love that. So where along your leadership journey does this idea, this concept, this framework that we're going to dig into, the bell curve of life, when does this come to you as a thing? Is this something that came to you and was kind of percolating for a couple decades, or was it new? Maybe give us a little origin story there.
Sure. It has been percolating for a couple of decades. And just quickly, I always wanted to be a teacher of sorts in my second career. This has been kind of a lifelong desire for me. But I had to do all the other stuff, and I had to do those things in order to qualify me to be in this role of teaching, coaching, mentoring, that kind of thing. So I had to do all that stuff. But basically with that, like I said, I was a manager at a very early age. And I was a good manager. I wasn't excellent, I would say, but I was really good. People wanted to work with me and for me. But the bell curve of life, the whole premise here, we all remember from middle school, is 20% in the top of the category, 60% are in the middle, and 20% in the lower category of skills and, desire and, results and that kind of thing. And as I was managing my staff over the years, and I would do annual reviews and then just regular interaction with them and guidance and coaching and that kind of thing, everybody has things they are really good at. They have things they're okay at, and they have things they're poor at. And some of my material relates to, actually, I call it construction manager skills. scheduling, job site condition, and finish quality. And to me, those are three legs of a stool of an on-site construction manager. He's got to be able to schedule and coordinate with the trades and with everybody else. He has to run a good subdivision with stages and job site cleanliness and all that kind of thing. And then as well, he's got to produce a good product. There has to be good finish quality for the customer, and mainly for the customer, and then for everybody else, of course. And so with this, I had many times in my career where I had a guy that was a great scheduler, but his neighborhood didn't look very good. And he could finish a great house, but my goodness, it took him forever to do it. And so when I was managing these folks, I would use this as part of my management and growth skills, that kind of thing. Okay, hey, Joey, you're really, really good here. This is fantastic, but there's some other areas you got to work on here as well. So what can we put in place to be able to work on these other skills that you need in order to be the best you can be? And so I did that with not just field personnel, but everybody else. And so this whole bell curve theory has been in my mind. I managed with this principle for the last 20, 25 years. And so all of this now, when I'm doing, just kind of comes natural to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So maybe tell us a little bit about, there's a few principles you shared with me that I was writing them down. I think at the surface level, I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. And then I found myself going about my daily life, running our business, working with clients, and it was just sticking in the back of my head. But let's talk about A performer, C performer, A environment, C environment. Go into that a little bit detail.
Oh, I sure will. That just started as what I'll call one of my topics in my portfolio of stuff, but it's turning out to be what I'll call a cornerstone of my entire program. The premise here is that if you put a C, and this all relates to our historical educational grading scale, A, B, C, D, and F. Okay, we all had those grades in middle school, that kind of thing. A is good, C is medium, F is bad. And so basically, Bradley, if you put a C performer in an A environment, they can become an A performer. If you put an A performer in a C environment, they will drift towards C performance and they will probably leave. And I've got a formula for an A environment. It includes your leadership and vision, good communication, problem solving, that kind of thing is part of it. And then I've got characteristics of an A performer. Someone that wakes up every day wanting to do a good job. They've got good communication skills. They're a problem solver, that kind of thing. But I am convinced that if an owner, CEO, director creates an A environment and they promote and attain A performance, they cannot fail. They can't. And this relates not only to internal staff, but also what I call close external partners. And basically with home building, those are the trades and the suppliers. I mean, we rely on them every single day. They've got to perform. We have to perform for them. So I pull them into this equation as well. But again, if you create an A environment and attain A performance, you just can't fail in our society. I'm convinced of that. So that's the A performer, C performer.
I like that. Well, it has recently, in a very specific way, I won't go into detail, that we have an important process internally with our team. And it's been clearly communicated to me, and I kind of knew about it, but I've been ignoring it, that kind of one process and one aspect, the culture and the process just around this was somewhere between terrible and toxic. Like, not good. Okay. People don't like it. People want to do it. Nobody likes it. I kind of know, but I've kind of distanced myself from it. But I've been thinking about, all right, in this process, in this environment, I don't think it's everywhere, but it certainly is here. We have really talented people who are in a crappy environment and it's just sucking them down. So that absolutely immediately resonated with me. Let me ask you, you kind of mentioned suppliers and trades in here. We've got a lot of folks on the supply side who are listening right now, fascinated to listen to an executive for a production home builder. What have you seen when it comes to kind of leadership and communication and problem solving? What have you seen the best suppliers do that made them the obvious choice to partner with you? Not only that, but you'd be willing to pay a little bit more to partner with them as well.
Okay. Such a good question, my goodness. And I've spent a lot of time on that. And actually, that's part of my program material now as well. But I've come up with what I'll call a 4-category answer to this question. Number 1, know and understand your products and services. Okay. You got to know what it is you're selling and what you're offering. And that ties into whether it's materials or there's a lot of turnkey stuff going on these days. It took Atlanta a long time to get into the turnkey market. I'm not sure about. I know Vegas was turnkey forever and ever, but Atlanta's finally gotten there. So that's part of the service situation of big suppliers now. But know and understand your products. And then from a salesperson standpoint, if you do have multiple product lines, like most suppliers do, they've got trusses and lumber and windows and doors and interior trim and siding and roofing and just decking, all the stuff. Some are going to be really good at some things. And back to the bell curve theory, they're going to be really good at trusses and framing, but interior trim might not be their strong point. Know that, understand it, and get help from your associates. So that's a big deal as well. So knowing your product and then also trusting the operation behind you as a salesperson, making sure that is in good order and you can supply what you claim. So that's number one, know and understand your product lines. Number two, this is huge. You must identify and understand the problems or issues that your customer or potential customer is facing. What's not working well? What are their pain points? And what are the answers that you and your company and your services can do to help eliminate those problems and fix those problem areas? That's number two. Number three is, how do you differentiate yourself from your competition? Why are you and your company the answer to their problems? And a big part of this, Bradley, is, and look, hey, what we do, there are a lot of commodities out there. I mean, everybody can sell a 2x4. 10 companies can sell a yard of concrete, that kind of thing. So a lot of commodities. There are a few specialized things in the industry. We both know that. But basically, what differentiates you from your competition and why are you there and how can you solve their problems? So that's number three. And then the fourth and very important one is fulfill your commitments. Do what you say you're going to do. And this is with quality of product, timing of delivery, service, and consistent pricing is a big, big deal as well. Builders do not like floating pricing that changes and that kind of thing. So those are the four big things that a supplier, a manufacturer, distributor, or subcontractor can do. And it sounds kind of simple. It's hard to do, but these are very simple topics.
All right. I'm going to give you a question here, Farrell. Your answer will be one number. It's only one number, and it's going to be a percentage, okay?
Okay.
We're going to roll in your entire career, all right, your experience talking to salespeople, any salespeople. I'll even roll in your personal life. You roll in all those experiences, 0 to 100%. What percentage of them could succinctly and with clarity say why they are better or different than their competition? Just one number. Roll it all in for me. The history of Farrell with salespeople. What number would that be?
Wow, well, that's a loaded question, but you knew it. Candidly, Bradley, I'm going to say 30%.
I'm just going to let that sit there for our audience because we spend a lot of time with kind of our clients. And I'll say it. I think with us too, it's easy to descend into all the details and kind of forget when someone's sitting there who looks like you, who's an executive, who says, I don't know, Atlanta's a big market. It's pretty competitive out there. Why should I buy from you instead of other people? A lot of people, it's something that to some degree they're figuring out on the fly, and it's such a big topic. So I obviously that's a big matzo ball of a question I just threw at you, and I appreciate your candor, but sure, I think it's really important. And if you're a GC who's doing vertical construction, or an owner who's doing heavy highway, or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. But if we can't clearly articulate why we're better or different than the competition, then right off the bat, we're making it harder for everybody, including the person like you or the purchasing team who's making that buying decision. So I have a little rambling there. I appreciate you playing along with that, Farrell.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no. That's a good question. That's why, I've come up with these four areas, and, it's just so important, and they all matter. But the other thing as well with this is not just on the sales staff and the sales force. They've got to have the operation behind it. And the ultimate positive and healthy relationship with any customer is the responsibility of everybody from the top down in any supplier type organization. They've got to take it seriously, because if your sales guys are out there selling and marketing stuff that you can't produce, you got a bad recipe there. It's not going to work. So the operations folks, they've got to participate. They got to be on board. It's huge, huge.
Absolutely. So let's talk about when you were talking about kind of internal customer service. Again, I kind of first went to our organization. Then I thought about some things we're working on with some of our clients. Go into this idea of the internal customer service and how this kind of feeds into the principles in the bell curve of life.
Oh, sure. This is going to be a big thing for me as well. So basically, to me, internal customer service, the basic definition is how well are your associates, team members, and departments getting along and coordinating to produce the product or service that you want to produce. And again, this includes your close external partners, those folks that you rely on every single day. And let's take a medium to large size home building operation. Okay, my wheelhouse. Developing land, building houses, selling them, that kind of thing. There are 5 major departments that we can call it. Okay, inside a home building company, you have land acquisition and development. You've got internal operations, which is purchasing, estimating, architecture. You've got construction. You've got sales and marketing, and you have finance and accounting. There are going to be some variants off of that, that kind of thing with this, that, and the other, whatever. But I think everybody understands that. So you got 5 major disciplines. If those folks aren't getting along very well, there will be trouble in paradise. And for example, if internal operations and construction don't have a good relationship, and I've been there. I've been in companies where this has not been a good symbiotic relationship and that kind of thing. It's really poor. And what will happen is the final delivery of product and services and customer service and all that, it will suffer if your folks aren't getting along well. And so internal customer service is a big deal. And I have been in every combination of it in my 36 years of home building with different companies to where people get along well. They all have the same mission and vision in mind. And I've seen the one where it is just absolute backbiting and undercutting and that kind of thing. It's very unhealthy. But if you don't have good internal customer service, how in the world do you think you're going to provide good external customer service? You can't do it. If you do, it's going to be a grind and it's going to take its toll. No doubt about it. So that's internal customer service.
Couldn't agree more. And that, as you know, and I know you do this in your program, that's a whole, how do we do that? Good to-dos, not to-dos, insights, warning signs, things like that. Totally different rabbit hole we could go down. But what I thought, I've been really impressed with talking to you, and I think some people like Keegan who are younger, and you have a passion for that. Tell me what's different, or if, say you got an executive coaching client, say they're, mid 40s and they're coming in, they're either in the C-suite or they're near the C-suite. Then you've got somebody who's younger, a less experienced manager. Tell me about maybe the order in which you approach things, because I think sometimes we see some young talent and they're struggling a little bit. I'll say, hey, just walk me through the onboarding. What sort of training have we done? And I feel like sometimes we start with step number 6 when he's looking for step number 1. Like, where's the bathroom? Where's my office? Who's the foreman for the framing crew? Yeah. And we're jumping in something later talking about EBITDA. And obviously that's a far example, but what have you learned and what's your recommendation for folks when working with less experienced managers?
That's a big focus for my program. Like I said, I was a young manager and I really want to spend some time with this younger crowd. Basically, what's happening, in my opinion, this is not just in home building and through my own personal experiences when I was still actively home building a couple of years ago, but with other home building companies and other companies outside of home building that I'm currently engaged with. Basically, Bradley, with the employment situation these days, executives and high-level managers are needing to promote younger individuals before they're ready. It's happening. I could tell you some Home Depot stories of friends I've got, but it's just as a for example in home building, and all of our audience today will understand this. You've got what I'll call a project manager and an assistant project manager in a residential neighborhood. The project manager leaves, or I have to put him in another project for some reason, whatever. I got to move my chessboard around, which I did for years. That young assistant project manager, he might have been my best choice because he knows the neighborhood, he knows the houses, but he's just not all the way up there yet with that ultimate responsibility for managing that job site on a daily basis. And I'll be honest with you, I held my breath a lot. And basically, that was an example. And it was my job to identify those areas that needed some guidance, that kind of thing. But my direction there would be, again, focus on the objective. And I had to lay out the objective, of course. But managing is about problem solving. And I start just about all of my programs with people with a relationship building category. Bradley, it's all about relationships. And if you can develop healthy relationships with other people you're working with in the office, subcontractors, homeowners, all that kind of stuff, it starts there. And then what you have to be able to do is you have to be a problem solver. And how do you solve problems? You solve problems by getting clear and direct information from who's ever providing that information. And one of the things I like is there is no wrong answer. Tell me what's going on, and we can fix the problem. And finally, with these younger folks, it's coming into what else can I help you with? Which means if when the conversation is done with the topic of the moment, always in the conversation saying, hey, what else can I help you with? I know there's some other problem you've got. Can I try to help you? And I'm convinced that if you help somebody solve their problems, in return, they will help solve your problems as well. And to me, for young managers, that's the big deal. Relationships, problem solving, and just getting to what is the nature of the issue and how do we solve it quickly. Those are three big things.
How do you walk that line between giving them autonomy, and we talked a little bit earlier about giving them some room to fail, but also addressing the fact that a lot of young people, especially the ambitious ones, are going to like, I want this, I need this, I want to prove to you that I can handle this. I want to prove to you you've made a good choice in me. But there also comes with that potentially a fear of failure. And some things are breaking down. I have some questions. I have concerns. The last thing I want to do is raise my hand and say, Mr. Middleton, I don't know what the hell is going on over here. I need a hand when you've given me this responsibility. How might you address that fear of failure for some young folks that almost want to kind of put their arms around it and hide it until they can figure it out?
Okay. No, boy, that is a very compelling question and one that needs to be answered by a lot of people. And basically, this is where the management skills come in. And again, all my stuff ties together. This goes back to an A environment. Okay. If you have that young person that is energetic and they want to pursue, they want to have a lot of responsibility, if that responsibility is given to them by the person in charge or authority, whatever, then that person must be approachable when that younger person has challenges. And that's where it comes in. That's part of an A environment. There's problem solving, there's good communication, that kind of thing. And as well, that's where there's no wrong answer comes in. And that's where I think I was a very good manager. I was very open-minded. I've got a high level of patience. Sometimes my bar was too high for other people's inefficiencies, that kind of thing. But I'm okay with that. I'm comfortable with it. It's what makes me tick. But basically, that's where the manager comes in, and that's where you are a good manager if you can instill that relationship with the people that report to you to where they can be honest and without repercussion and all that kind of stuff. Now, let's be clear. If there's a chronic issue here and someone's making the same mistake over and over again, that's obviously a different category. I mean, we all know that. But generally speaking, if you want these people to grow into good managers and good decision makers, you got to let them do it, but you got to be there open-minded for support. You just have to. It's a fundamental key to management.
I'm gonna make a right turn here because there's something I gotta ask you. For let's call it the better part of the last 5-6 decades, when we've looked at building materials in general, especially wood-based fiber products, the commodity pricing on that has been relatively stable, and it's kind of allowed this relationship between building material suppliers and builders to largely understand where the costs are at and kind of say, hey, let's kind of keep doing the same thing. And if I'm putting together a budget and I'm an LBM dealer, I can say, I don't know, maybe the market goes up a little bit. Maybe it's a couple points up and we're just going to keep doing that. And for a long time, that has worked extremely well. And there's organizations that have been in business for 70, 80 years that have done that. Obviously, over the last several years, that has completely changed. And during the pandemic, that power has shifted to the seller away from the buyer. So that was a shift. Mm-hmm. What have you learned and what have you seen and experienced, and what advice might you have for this new environment where we have volatile commodity prices that hasn't really existed for a long time, and people are still really struggling, kind of where that ties into trust and the relationship that we've got. I know this is another giant question that we could go on for 2 hours, but what pops to mind as you think about the relationship between suppliers and builders specifically, given the volatile commodity pricing?
Okay. All right. Man, another excellent question. And yes, we all know this changed drastically in March of 2020 when COVID came. Okay. It was a brutal environment for all of us. And I'll tell you, let's see, I guess at the time I was 56 years old, I suppose, 3 years ago. And it was amazing what I learned in the next 12 months. And what we had to do was, and I took this very seriously because, again, this is part of this A environment thing. I've always wanted to provide a good environment for my trades to make money. Okay. They have to make money. I wanted my job sites to be the ones I wanted to go to every day, that kind of thing. But basically, what we started doing is we would have weekly phone calls, for example, with our major suppliers. And let's be clear, trusses, windows, and cabinets are the scheduled killers for production home builders. I'm going to say it again, trusses, windows, and cabinets. I've been saying this for 25 years. And so what we had to do, and I learned a lot about this in that relationship, is they aren't mind readers. Okay. They had a limited supply of materials, and we had an unlimited supply of lots that they needed to provide services to. They didn't know which ones to go to. And so we made a high-level management directive where we would communicate with those major trades on a weekly basis. We'd have phone calls with them, Zoom calls, that kind of thing. And we would have to tell them what our priorities were for, like, our window manufacturer. Okay. We had to tell him what houses to send the next windows to. We got into an excruciating level of detail, but the point is I learned more about window manufacturing than I ever thought I wanted to or needed to know about vinyl extrusions and, all the other parts and pieces, balances, and, all the other stuff. Because one week he had that, then the next week he didn't have that kind of thing. So the big takeaway from this was coordination and trusting, because you're right, the relationship has changed. It's not hey, I'm buying this and you're going to tell me, I'm going to tell you what you're going to do every day. That doesn't exist anymore. I don't think that's ever coming back, by the way. I don't know. But anyway, with that, I learned a lot about how coordinating, and then again, this ties back to the close external partner theory. I had to have them on a daily basis. And for them to perform, I had to tell them what my priorities were. And again, that was part of that relationship thing. So advice to builders these days is get to know your trade partners, understand what their challenges are, because if you do, you can then help them make decisions on how to service your account.
Yeah.
I hope I said that the right way. I think I did.
Yeah. Yes, you did. And I think when this goes up and down and the pricing goes back down, and I think we're just going to kind of see this power shift back and forth between buyer and seller more wildly in the future. I think we all know how to operate in an environment when the buyer, the GC, the builder, developer, whatever, they're in control. They have more options. It's a competitive environment. I feel like we all know how that works because we've spent a lot of our lives in that. What I still think we're still trying to figure out, and when this shifts quickly, is how is it when, wait a minute, last month we were just in a negotiation and we dictated all of that. New information has happened. New issues have affected our supply chain. Now the seller is the one dictating terms. And how do I, going back to your point of managing my emotions, understanding the environment, maintaining trust, building on that relationship and trying to maintain that. I think that's the skill that collectively we're all going to have to make sure we don't take advantage of. Otherwise, I think it's going to be a less enjoyable environment for us all to be in throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about it. And where this starts is with the relationship with suppliers. Let's just take it, for example. And this is going back to what I learned from Tom Bradbury 37 years ago. Best production builder in the Southeast, that kind of thing. And I was, I did some things to help, that kind of thing. But clearly it was his vision. But builder on paper first. We were very good with purchase orders and things like that. Our plans were in good shape. We didn't do custom changes, that kind of thing. So the builder has a responsibility to provide accurate information to the trade base in order for them to perform. Get your plans right. Get your purchase orders right. Get your schedule correct. Have your guys run a good neighborhood. And trust me, your trade base will follow you no matter where you go. If you do that and you pay them on time and pay them right, all that kind of stuff, the relationship can be good. And look, I've been on both sides of this. I've been in areas, man, I've had crappy plans in the past. I've had crappy budgets. I've had all kinds of crappy stuff. And it doesn't help anybody. And nobody wins with that. It's crazy. So the builder's got a responsibility to set that environment for that trade to be successful and perform. There's no doubt about it. It starts with the builder and the information. It does.
Builder on paper first. I just wrote down. It's such a great line. Instantly, I'm thinking of all sorts of good and bad experiences relevant to that. But hey,
Sure.
as I'm watching the time here, this has been a lot of fun. I want to make sure I want to highlight a couple things as we close out here. Tell the audience about, I've been watching some of them. I think they're great. Tell us about Focus with Farrell. Where did that come from? And kind of what's the vision for that? Or what's the promise you're making to folks who can find that on LinkedIn and everything with that?
Great. No, thank you very much. It is actually just a program I've started recently. They are just little 60-second, what they call reels in the videographer world, little 60-second spots. And I'll be honest with you, I got to give credit where credit is due. I've been doing this for about a year and a half. I left home building May of last year. And I've been doing a lot of personal growth development, that kind of thing. I got caught up in my professional reading. I was way behind for years because I was just so darn busy, that kind of thing. But I've learned a lot in the last 18 months or so. And actually, a little promo here for John Maxwell. He has his Minute with Maxwell spot every morning.
Yes.
It's fantastic. It's a pre-subscription. Are you familiar with it?
I am.
By any chance?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, Darren Daly. Somebody turned me on to Darren Hardy with his Darren Daly message. It's a daily mentoring thing. I see you're nodding your head. And so those are great things. And I'm like, hey, I think I might want to do something kind of like that. And so I came up with Focus with Farrell. And spots are released every Wednesday morning. And basically, it's a little 60-second spot. And I have what I call a topic of the day. And all of this is material in my program. And I just do a little 60-second spot with a topic of the day and some insight and some guidance into, again, how you can be a better problem solver, how you can be a better, what's an A performer, that kind of thing. But it's a little 60-second once a week. Just, hey, let me give you something to think about. And I want you to have a takeaway from that you can use immediately in that day. And so I'm having a great time with it. I'm very comfortable with it. It's just my material, but I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it. Really good stuff. So I'm really pleased with it.
Yeah, I like it because anytime we can shrink that gap between exposure and adoption, and I heard this thing, let me try to implement it. Let's see what happens. And it's extremely tactical. You can just take it. You can watch on your phone. That's where I watch one of them. I'm like, yes. And it's the people business. And whether it's a consulting business or it's a home building business or LBM supply or heavy highway contractor GC, it's all about people and management and leadership, which again is a reason I wanted you to have here. And I'm glad we did. We will make sure we link to that in the show notes. Would you have any other recommendations that you'd leave our audience with on where to connect with you, your website, when they've gotten value from this, can give them a really clear next step?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, LinkedIn, of course. I've got my personal page, Farrell Middleton. Then I've got the Bell Curve of Life page as well. It's my business page. They're connected. And then my website is thebellcurveoflife.com. Very simple. Email address, Farrell, Farrell, at thebellcurveoflife. That's it. Very simple. And I'm accessible. I'm in the people business now. I'm about personal growth. And it's not about me having a good time, Bradley. The people I've had the honor of getting in front of, they're getting some good stuff out of the program. And when I get in a group setting as well, they are learning a lot from each other, which was my hopeful desire. It's really having really good interaction. It's about simple concepts, but what is it? Simple concepts drive complex behavior, something like that. So anyway, but yeah, it's really good practical stuff, and I'm having an impact and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, I can say in our interaction meeting before on this, you're having an impact on me, and stuff you've shared, we've already applied. It's started new conversations within our team. So thank you for that, and congrats on all your success. And thanks for making time for this.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Bradley. I've had an absolute pleasure with you today. I've had a good time as well. Thank you for the probing questions. Really good stuff to think about. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day.
You too. All right, then, friends, how did that go? Hopefully you enjoyed my conversation with Mr. Farrell Middleton. And if you did, I got two small-ish favors. One, whatever podcast platform you're listening to, please rate and review us. Those mean more to us than you know as we strive to grow our audience, bring our construction community together to build better, safer, faster, and more profitably. The second one, it's going to take a little bit more effort, but I promise you will be more meaningful. If you can find someone you work with, and I guarantee there's someone you work with who does not really listen to any podcasts, and just grab their phone and subscribe to a couple podcasts. Give them some direction, because I have found increasingly when you take someone who's not engaged with podcasts at all and is listening to Taylor Swift reruns on Pop 40 hits, or they're listening to ESPN on repeat every single day, that when you open their eyes to what podcasts can offer on personal development and entertainment, they are in control. It literally changes their lives. So there are days when I feel like I'm literally doing this one by one, and I will continue doing that because it's really impacted my life. There's other days where we meet just so many more people and people are recommending other podcasts to me. So if you want to include our podcast in that, fine. But this isn't about that. This is about increasing the overall community of people who are growing every day. And with the amount of time we spend in the car, this is a great opportunity to learn, to improve, and to lead more fulfilling lives. So that's my ask for you. All right, that's all I got. I'm going to quit rambling. We're going to close out like we always do with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.